Well, the same housing authority that recently laid off employees and made other cuts in light of declining federal funding spent $84,000 on training last year, most of that on travel.
Now, community watchdogs spent almost 4 months requesting travel records from the Kingsport Housing and Redevelopment Authority. And when he questioned the authority's travel budget, the former chairman did this.
Let me just.
Period. I'm through talking. Now we're through with this interview.
Well,
we're through with this interview.
Let me just.
The agency has also made it difficult to simply look at the itemized receipts from those trips. Nate Morabito found out some of the KHRA's travels took staff across the country.
Mama, look!
Tyler Hughes has 2 kids and a third on the way.
She's due in August. It's a little girl.
If he could, he says he'd love to take them somewhere.
Anywhere better than sitting around here every day.
Problem is, he doesn't have a car, a job, or any money for that matter.
I got my daddy's shoes.
He lives in public housing and says it's a struggle just to pay rent.
Do plasma, so it's roughly $70 a week if I can get to do it twice. So.
Hughes says his family has only ever taken 1 trip to Gatlinburg, and they didn't even foot the bill.
Besides our friends paying for us for a trip, never. Because we never have enough money.
The people who run the Kingsport Housing and Redevelopment Authority can't say the same. They traveled all across the country for training in 2014. Public records identified trips to San Diego, Maine, and Oregon, just to name a few. According to those records, 24 people charged 101 expenses in all to the Housing Authority, including some in-house seminars. Many of those people took multiple trips. The total cost of all of 2014's training, including travel, lodging, meals, and training costs, $84,000. We first asked questions about travel here in January and requested more information in early March.
Well, we have a very tight budget for next year. Very tight.
Several weeks later, the then chairman and deputy director talked with us about the agency's anticipated budget constraints, the result of a decline in federal funding.
We just watched expenses.
That's when we asked about the travel budget.
You know, there's probably no secret that I've been asking about the travel expenses. I'm sure they've made you aware of that. Has that been something you all have scaled back?
Yeah, we've scaled back on everything.
The interview continued for several more minutes, and then I asked the deputy director one follow-up. That's when things went from cordial to this.
You mentioned the travel, just because obviously that's what I've been asking about mostly.
Why are you wasting your time on travel? That's a stupid question.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. It's we send people to training sessions that we need to send them to. We review their expenses when they come back, and I don't need your implication, which you did with about 3 questions regarding us spending too much on travel.
As I tried to get a word in edgewise,
Let me just.
Period. I'm through talking. Now we're through with this interview.
Well, that's
We're through with this interview.
Jack Vandevate not only ended the interview, he took it a step further.
Now, you are asked to leave right now.
I'm asked to leave because I'm asking you about travel expenses?
No, you're asked to leave because you're being rude to us. Now, we are through.
At this point, I hadn't even questioned him about the 2014 budget. So before we left, I made sure to ask.
There was $84,000 spent in travel last year.
We are through, sir.
According to my math, and I just want to make sure you feel comfortable with that.
We are comfortable with what we do, and we don't need you smart telling us how to do it.
Vandevate said our multiple questions about travel were disrespectful.
You don't think that people deserve to know about this?
No.
I've heard from several people that are concerned about this.
Like who?
It's good time to be gone. Good time to be gone.
Former employee Edna Potts joins the group of people with concerns. The Housing Authority laid off the 33-year employee last month. Today, she still has questions about all those trips we mentioned, especially considering in the months leading up to her departure, she says the agency stripped funding away from a program under her watch that helped feed children after school, something the agency denies.
If they can find the money to travel to Portland, Oregon, Portland, Maine, California, New Orleans, and on and on and on, they can find the money to go out here and feed these kids, because my staff that I had when I was there, we're struggling.
Speaking of food, we don't know what the travelers ate and drank or where they stayed during their trips. We first asked the Housing Authority to let us look at the itemized receipts back on March 25th, after previously asking for other public records involving finances here. The initial response, it would cost an estimated $5,000 to provide everything we requested. In addition, the agency said it needed clearance from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So we asked HUD for clearance, specifically to look at those itemized receipts. The response, in our opinion, there should be no reason to withhold what we would consider to be public information. But that wasn't good enough. The same day, the Housing Authority said it still needed the okay from HUD's legal team. And even then, it would cost us $541 just to look. The cost of labor incurred to compile the documents. We've since protested that charge with the Tennessee Open Records Council. In the meantime, none of this really surprises Potts, a woman who, according to these records, took one trip in 2014 to Franklin for a workshop hosted by the Tennessee Association of Housing and Redevelopment. The total cost? $975.
I don't know what kind of training they went to at these other cities. Everything seems like a secret here.
Back in that boardroom in late March,
I lost my cool, I'm sorry.
Vandevate offered up that apology. But by April, no one from the agency would talk on camera with me. However, as the board announced a major restructuring, a board member did address those travel costs.
Hired more people, had some different training, had position changes, new responsibilities, and then a lot of regulatory changes that required more meetings and conferences.
Back on Tyler Hughes' front porch,
That's crazy.
the travel expenses have his attention, especially as his family prepares for another summer where they won't step foot outside of Kingsport.
An agency spokesperson told me all training outside this area was for employees to earn housing program certifications or to receive updates on rules and regulations connected to programs they run. By the way, Josh, the Housing Authority's fiscal year just ended on March 31st. For that 12-month period, the agency admits it did go over budget when it comes to travel.
Okay, the agency's saying they're not going to talk to you on camera about this. What else did they say, if anything, off camera?
Yeah, well, a spokesperson says the Housing Authority hired or changed duties for 10 people last year, and all those people needed some form of training. She tells me travel and training, by the way, make up just a small part of the agency's annual budget.
All right, Nate, thank you. You can find a list of all the training expenses on our website, WJHL.com. Sarah?